Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Klein, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devin Klein.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Bootcamp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
Hey, what is up, Burn Nation, and welcome back to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I have a familiar face here on today's focus meeting episode. As you know, each week we do a focus meeting with a member from Burn Nation who is wanting to get to the next level. That's what we're all about here. We're a bunch of ambitious people that want to figure out how to ascend up the self-actualization hierarchy and become the best version of ourselves. We have Cynthia Russe here. Cynthia is in our book. She was one of the 14 stories in our book. Incredible story. Our relationship really got started. Prior to that, I went to an event that we held at Chick-fil-A College Football Hall of Fame in downtown Atlanta, Georgia. And we had about 1,000 members out for a Saturday morning in which we ran, I believe it was 3 camps back to back at the College Football Hall of Fame. Cynthia was there. She was in the middle of her cancer battle. She had a wig on, and she ended up doing jump squats pretty much so hard that her wig came off, and her hair was shaved at the time. We were just growing back, and I just remember our video, me training you. I was like, "You're a fighter." That's all I could say. Which just kept coming to me, and we've, I learned about her story then, what a fighter she truly and actually is. And then when we started looking at the Burn Bootcamp book, I reached out to Jody, who is the franchise partner of a multi-unit franchise partner, and a fantastic one, might I add, at that, a dear friend of mine. She's killing it, and she submitted your story for the book, and you end up making one of the 14 stories inside of Burn Bootcamp's 5-step strategy for inner and outer strength, available on Amazon now, a USA Today best-selling, #1 in the health and fitness category, by the way, number 9 and 10 overall for consecutive weeks. And so Cynthia and I actually did an interview where we dove very deep into her story, and we will link that episode in the show notes here so that you do have it, so that you can go back and really, if you'd like to get to know Cynthia from a real historical perspective. I'm going to have her give a quick snapshot of that journey, just a couple-minute one. But today is really about Cynthia, right? It's about getting her to the next level. And as we go through this, you are going to be able to follow along, and whatever her next level is, you also have one. And you'll be able to hopefully take a few things away today, as she is so willing and vulnerable to come on air and to talk about her life and her struggles and the desires that she has and what's stopping her from getting there. And I'm thrilled and privileged that you would entrust me with the ability to give you advice. And I know certainly you don't take advice just from anybody, and I appreciate that. And I look forward to a fruitful conversation today. So Cynthia, welcome back to the podcast. And why don't you, for those of you that hadn't got a chance to listen to our interview, why don't you just give a 2-minute snapshot of kind of where you've been and where you're at now, and then let's start to talk about the future, because we want to move forward from the past, don't we? Yeah.
Yes. So thank you so much, Devin, for having me today again on your podcast. It is a privilege and an honor to be here, and thank you for your willingness to give me advice on it. So I was a young mom. I had my first child at 17. And I got my bachelor's degree. I never stopped, college. I moved to the U.S. mainland. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. And while here, I met my husband, my ex-husband. I got married. I had my youngest kid. He's 10 now. My oldest is 18 now, which is crazy to even say. And in the middle of that marriage, it was very toxic, very chaotic. I got diagnosed with breast cancer, and that kind of crumbled anything or everything that was so-called marriage. And I basically had to go through cancer on my own with my 2 kids. I am finally divorced as of 2 months now. So very, very happy about that. It was a very chaotic divorce process. And now I am back to having my life. I am back to having my body because I lost my body to cancer to some extent. So I'm just regaining my body and finding out who I am after losing all these years to, a toxic marriage and cancer and all the chaos that life brought.
Wow, what you said there, that's profound, and I think just a piece of evidence that shows where you're at in your journey is finding who I am. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like the notion underneath that is that I'm somebody who's always been there, who's never changed, and I'm just clearing the clutter. I'm getting clarity on my life, and it seems that at this point, you really have clarity on what lifestyle that you want to live in terms of where you want your emotional state and story to be. Where was your emotional state and story when you were in the thick of it versus where's your emotional state and what story are you telling yourself now and how do they differ?
So when I was in the thick of it, we all have our dark days, so to speak, and you have your days where you're just so defeated and you have no idea. I just kept pushing forward just because I have 2 kids I had to, continue to raise, and I couldn't give up, but I had no idea what I was walking toward. So I was literally trusting God every day. I woke up every day. I had no idea what the day would bring, but I would just do the things I knew I needed to get done. I tried to walk forward if that meant anything at that point. Just trusting that it was going to be better on the other side of it and not even knowing, where I was headed. It was just complete blind spot, just walking forward. So it was very hard mentally to just continue moving forward. I just did the things I could do. I worked out every morning. I ate as healthy as I could, and I took care of myself and my kids. And I just prayed that, I was able to get to the other side. So there was no real direction. It was just more of continuing healthy habits throughout.
Yeah, and so you're living in a different story now. Like, what was the story back then? Was it something along the lines of like, everything's okay? It's gonna when you were most blind to it, were you consciously turning an eye, and how has that taught you, if that's true, how to stand up for yourself today?
So back then, the story was everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Everything is okay. Till I kind of hit a brick wall, and it's like everything is not okay, but it will be okay. Mm-hmm. And I need to sit and feel my feelings. My body was screaming back at me, like, you need to feel all these because these are trapped inside of me and I need them out. I needed to heal from the inside. So my story back then was everything's okay. And then it became, it is not okay, but I will be okay. And then today I am okay, actually. I'm still healing through all of it. And I'm just pushing forward to whatever's next for me. Not necessarily I have a clarity on what's next, but I have goals now. It's not blindly that I don't know what I'll be able to do tomorrow. I know I can do things tomorrow. It's just, what path I'm going to take to get to these goals.
Well, everybody, I want you to listen to what Cynthia is saying, because the axiom of all transformational change starts with honesty. And if you're saying that I'm okay, it's going to be okay, and you're not, and if you're not okay, you're never going to be able to identify the issue, to have that self-discussion, to come up with a solve. Yeah. So the fact that you were honest with yourself was your turning point. And to me, that is the turning point in everyone's journey. It all is some reflection point in the mirror where you look at yourself and you're like, it is not working. I am not successful as, I'm not doing what I set out to do. This is not it. And I need to stop pretending like it is. Then and only then do we have a foundation for change on top of truth. So kudos to you for self-discovering that. It's so difficult. Not a lot of people do. I know that you have had some help along the way too, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Tremendous. A lot of help.
So just talk to me about the support network around you in a couple sentences.
So I did not want to share everything at the beginning. I wanted to kind of keep it all to myself until I couldn't, till literally I just needed to explode. And I'm grateful for all of those that were around me. I had a bunch of strangers around me at the time, and they really stood up for me. They did circles and prayed for me, and they're like, we got you. And in every way, not only mentally, but physically, they took care of me. They had meals for me. It was incredible, the amount of people that didn't really know who I was at the time and stood up and helped me. And I have a dear friend that she went with the Lord, but she was my soulmate, and she carried me mentally through all of it.
Well, yeah, you definitely need those people in your life, especially when the four walls of your home are turbulent. And I know that world, the chaotic world, very well. You kind of want to hide in the corner of a house in which the house doesn't have a corner to hide. And it's like you're constantly trying to get away from the environment that you're in, and you end up bullshitting yourself to make sure that everything's okay. And so, having honesty brought you to a community, and you've done some amazing things. Let's fast forward to now. You are cancer-free, in remission. Yes. You're at Burn Boot Camp's a big part of your journey. It's on all your journey. It's a big part of your journey. You're there. You're in the gym. You're actually working at one of the gyms now in a part-time capacity, right? Or full-time capacity?
Part-time.
Part-time capacity. And so, you found an environment, right? You've made the selections on where Cynthia spends her time and energy and who she spends it with, more importantly.
Oh, yes.
All right. So now, as yesterday ended last night. We can look to the past to run away from the things and the pain that we never want to feel again. But other than that, memory is made for really one thing. It's to go back, and it's to play the tape back and to say, in my history, what emotionally significant moments can I go back and give a positive association to that I currently have a negative one with? And outside of that, that's about the scope of a memory, other than to torment us and all the things that we didn't do. But that torment is a choice, and we get to choose how that we actually language that. It's not that we get free will in terms of the events that happen to us in our lives or the circumstances, but it is absolutely certain to me that we get free will in regard of how we react to the situations or circumstances that we are placed in. You always have that choice of whether I'm going to react with poise or react to chaos with chaos. And so you've been over these journeys, you've done a lot of the work, Cynthia, which is why I was so excited for this focus meeting, because it's like, I'm excited for you to open new doors, explore new territories, like really get some more clutter out of the way that's, built up over the years. And let's try to identify some of those things. And the reason I think I can help you is because I've had to clear the clutter out of my own life, and we can't transfer that we don't experience ourselves. And so this will be a great conversation. So let's start there. Where are you at today? There's a book that I really enjoy. Who's the author of it? It's called The Work by Byron Katie. It's called The Work. You might want to read this book. One of my favorite. Yeah, it's one of my favorite books ever, and it's what helped me reconcile the past, and it's what helped me paint a picture of the future. So it basically asks you, what do you want? Very simple question. What do you want the future to look like? Why do you want the future to look that way? What's stopping you? If something was stopping you, what is it? Is what's stopping you true? And what would the future look like if that thing wasn't stopping you? You follow me? So that's the process that I want to take you through today is Byron Katie's work. And it's just a fantastic book. So let's just run through those questions, right? Let's start. Okay. What is your vision? Like, what do you want and why?
Oh, that's a loaded question. All right.
For sure.
So I've been through all the phases of how I choose to react. I have chosen bitter. I have chosen chaotic. I have chosen all of the reactions. So I want my reaction to not be emotional moving forward. That is one of the biggest things that I have learned in this journey is that in my future, because we're going to have chaos every day. I mean, we're going to have chaos at every season in our life. Otherwise, we're not growing. And if we're not growing, we're dead. So there's going to be some kind of chaos in some area of our lives, all of our lives, and that's okay. So I always want to react not in an emotional way. So I want to have peace and joy within whatever chaos life brings and just be able to transfer that peace to my children. I want to continue to be very successful in my career, and I want to be super fit. I want muscles. I want to be lean, and I want to be a 90-year-old lady just doing pull-ups, which I can't do one yet. And I just want to do pull-ups. And I just want to be a healthy, fit 90-year-old living her best life, traveling the world, taking care of her grandkids. I mean, I just get excited just even talking about what I would really want my future to look like.
Yeah, no, I can tell by the way that you light up when you talk about it. And, you know, you've really dialed in what we call the North Star to the degree that we can work on it a little bit and dial it in more, we will. But having you already understand what you want your life to be like in a pretty specific way, it's clear that you value love because your children are a big part of that vision. It's clear that you value health and prosperity because being 90 and doing pull-ups is quite the achievement and accomplishment. And it's clear to me that you value the top of the hierarchy of needs in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is self-actualization and to be able to become your best self. And so by your response, I inherently already know that you and your children are the tribe. There might be other people that come into your life or out of your life, but it's youth. It's three. You have 2 kids, correct? Two. So it's you 3, and you know, them emulating you, and it's somewhere deep buried in there. I'm sure there's something missing from the relationship you might have had with your parents that you refuse to have missing from the relationship with your children. And if I'm correct, that's probably health and fitness, and at least one of the things is. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to really decipher the core values that you have from your vision. And am I close?
You are pretty close. Yes.
Okay.
I did not talk about like any love, any man, getting into my life yet. I do have a vision of what I want that to be like. But because I'm still learning how I should feel or how I need to be treated, I'm still healing from all that trauma. So I don't have a clear way on how I envision that aspect of my life.
Okay. Well, good. This is a great starting place. So I heard I'd like to work on emotional reactions. Mm-hmm. How do I control myself, self-control, self-awareness, emotional intelligence? How do I control my emotions in situations, especially ones that are chaotic, that are going to trigger past representations of your old inner self? We're a combination or a cumulative sum of all of the years that we've experienced up until today, and that's our personality. And oftentimes what I'm talking about with the memory is we have to go back and we have to use the memory to go back, dial in spots where we have a lot of negative pain and negative story and negativity around, and we need to flip the script on that. I call it flip the script. Just change your words, not using the words of losers but winners. So you'll have to pay very close attention to that. It's self-awareness, because you'll have the natural reaction in any chaotic situation, even if it's remotely close. PTSD essentially, right? Where
Yes.
where now you're going to start to experience the same story, the same state of emotion that you experienced then, and you're telling me that I need to get to a new level of emotional intelligence. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so and then the second one was, this is a more physical goal. It's like, I'm getting up on that pull-up bar and I'm going to do pull-ups.
Yes.
And what does that represent for you, pull-ups?
It's just something I haven't been able to accomplish ever, not even before chemo. I know where my body can go because of, how athletic I was before, but pull-ups just represent something I have never done before. And I know that if I can do that, I can accomplish anything. It's just another step in my fitness goal. And I lost a lot of strength in my arms. So like getting that strength, and I don't know, I just really want to do a pull-up.
Well, let me help you maybe language this, because because I think you have the words and maybe we can articulate them. It almost seems to me as if, because that you were not able to do a pull-up yet pre-cancer, pre-chemo, that doing one post-chemo has some representation of a manifested confidence over time. It has some representation of, because everything's a symbol. Like, you don't want the pull-ups, you want how you're going to feel from doing the pull-ups, right? So what does that give you? Does that give you something that you didn't have before? Does that solidify a confidence for you? Am I close there?
Yes. I do feel that once I get it, I feel like I have the confidence to stand up for myself. I have the confidence to say no, but like getting that pull up will be like, I got my power back as a person. I got my power back. I got my body back. I'm gaining everything that I have lost, but now I can have it all back and more.
Okay. All right, cool. So I understand that one. And then the last one is your kids and your grandkids, and not sitting on a rocking chair when you're 90, but talking to them up on the pull-up bar as you're showing them that you're the role model that you always wanted in your life. And I'm not to say that to dish your parents by any means, but I know that that's human psychology. Even if your parents were absolutely incredible and amazing, there's things that you could have done better, and you want to take the great things and pull those forward, but also leave the things that aren't so enchanting behind. So what is your relationship with your parents, your mom, maybe father specifically, and how does that have a correlation to this legacy vision that you have for yourself?
Of course. So I have a great relationship with my parents now. It's been a very rocky relationship. I've always considered I had a normal childhood. I never felt that I had traumas from my childhood, which, we all have. It doesn't matter how healthy your household was. We all have traumas. But my parents, I adore my parents. I love them to death. I constantly fight with them. I'm just like my dad. So we clash a lot. And I feel that I'm always like scolding my mom into like working out and eating healthy, and like, I can help you, but if you don't want to be helped. So I definitely did not live that way when I was younger. My parents weren't really into working out, or my dad was a lot into sports, and he carried me around everywhere, and my grandpa, but I did not see a healthy habit necessarily in my home. So I do want to kind of bring that legacy moving forward. I don't want my children or my grandkids to have all the repercussions of not having a healthy lifestyle. For example, my mom deals with a lot of medical issues. My dad has diabetes, and he controls all of that with his food, but he's doing pickleball now, and he's doing all these physical activities now, which is great. But my mom's still struggling a little bit. I actually had a conversation with her this morning. So I want my kids and my grandkids to be like, oh yeah, if I need a health advice, I'm going to go to grandma. If I want to meal prep, grandma, can you help me meal prep? I just want them to feel healthy, not only physically, but mentally, and just have a safe space.
Yeah, no, okay. So I think I hear you, and I think you have a great clarity on where you want to go, and also great clarity that emotional intelligence and emotional competency is the number one area to focus on, especially being in let's just call it an abusive relationship. You get to the point where even your own intuition emotionally is disregarded. You disregard your own emotional premonitions because of the fear of actually being yourself. And so I want to share something with you. I think this is what helped me the most. So on my own journey to self-awareness, this is what helped me the most. It was a quote from Marcus Aurelius. And when I read this quote, I was like, oh my goodness, that is exactly it. And this is just an approach. It's just an attitude. It changed my life. Hopefully it can change yours too. And the quote was, every day I expect to wake up and encounter fools. I expect people to not know how to communicate. I expect people to not treat me well. I expect people to argue. I expect people to have no emotional intelligence. I expect people to belittle me. I expect. And then when you expect, what you have is an anticipation. You have an anticipation the night before. If I'm thinking, I'm going to encounter somebody tomorrow that's not going to treat me so well, I'm ready for that when it comes now. I'm not surprised in the moment, and I don't have to react emotionally if I already know the night before that I'm going to have to prepare to button up my emotional reaction tomorrow at some point, for sure, because it happens every single day. And the more responsibility that you have in your life, the more often it happens. And at a certain point, 90% of your conversations are ones in which you need to react or conversate from a place of emotional intelligence. So expect to wake up the next day and encounter people that are going to be mean to you. And when you do that, it's not that that's like a doom and gloom, like the world is
Right.
full of bad people, because people are mostly good, and I fundamentally believe that, but there's a lot of people. And so mostly leaves a lot of opportunities for bad people and people that maybe aren't bad, but they're just not on the righteous path. So when I go to bed every night, for about a year straight, it took me to burn this into my brain, but I just say it out loud to myself. Tomorrow when I wake up, I will encounter foolish behavior. Do not be surprised by foolish behavior. And that to me was the foundation of becoming a person that could have emotional intelligence. Because now, when you do get into those interactions, you can go back, you can use this memory thing that we're talking about in short order, and you can even do it hour over hour. Hey, how was I during that reaction? Or the self-awareness 3-pack. You should write these down if you would want to keep these as a tool. The self-awareness 3-pack is, why do I feel that way? Is this the way I want to feel? What's stopping me from feeling the way that I would want to feel? Just those 3 questions is a very practical nature of self-awareness and how to stop and just think before we talk. And so that started me on my emotional intelligence journey. And I'll tell you what, I don't have a conversation in my life in which I cannot handle emotionally in the moment because I'm expecting to have them. Does that make sense? What does that mean to you?
Yes. So it's funny because I have been asking those same questions anytime I feel a certain way that I wouldn't want to be, feeling. And most of the times I find out, we all react because of our traumas, or we all react from the place we're at. So I have learned to distinguish the person from the reaction. And I have learned from myself to just take what serves a purpose and to disregard what doesn't. So anytime I take this the wrong way, I'm like, why is this bothering me? And then I have to kind of dig deeper into, why am I feeling this way? And what do I need to heal, or what do I need to overcome in order to not feel this way again when this comes, back in any other way. So it's just been a very interesting journey to just sit down and be like, why did I really feel this way? Sometimes I have to write it. Sometimes I'm days thinking about it until, that light bulb goes on and it's like, oh, this is why I felt that way. So I think that those 3 points are very essential in your intellectual growth and your emotional growth.
And the punchline to all of that is nobody is allowed to make you feel any way.
Yes.
Right. And you've done the work, and I know that you know that. So let me go back to the work and Byron Katie. When it comes to emotional intelligence, you told me your vision. Okay. The next question is, so you told me what you wanted and why. I want more emotional intelligence, to react less and to be proactive more. Okay. I want to actually be a person that is so mentally and emotionally strong that no one else can actually make me feel a certain way. Do you feel that is the case today? Are you still, are you going through the days, weeks, months, reacting emotionally, or are you really putting this work to practice?
I feel that I've been really putting into practice, and I have learned, someone told me to treat different things in life as a business. And this has really changed how I react in a lot of ways. So, you get a reaction, and your jerk reaction is, you get something and your jerk reaction is, this is how I'm going to respond. So I write it down and I just go somewhere else. I'm an overthinker. So I could be all day thinking about this. I intentionally do something to distract myself. And then when I come back to it and I read it and I'm like, yes, that is how the old me would have totally reacted. But this is how the new me is going to react. And I choose how I want to react to this situation. And I am not going to put myself in a position to be belittled again. I am not going to be put into a shaming position again. I'm not going to put myself in that position because I lived in that position for so long. And I know how it feels, that I know exactly what I don't want. So I choose to react intelligently. I mature, emotionally mature, rather than just my jerk reaction, which is normal. I mean, we all have it. There's no good or wrong. It's whatever journey you're in, but I choose not to react in that jerk reaction, in that, I call it the old me reaction, because I just know how I feel and I know the consequences of it, and I don't want them. I don't want that life anymore.
Yes. And so this is really good, because the next question is, what's stopping you from doing this already? And so the answer to here's a good audit. In the last month, have you had a conversation that you didn't like the way that you emotionally reacted and you had no control over it? You just did it because it was nature.
Not that I can think of.
So the answer to the question, what's stopping you, is what?
What's stopping me? To reacting?
Seems like if you haven't had any negative reactions and emotional reactions in the last 30 days, there's not much stopping you from already doing this. So for this to make one of your top 3 goals means it's on your mind, but often, just like in the gym, when we can lift a 25-pound weight on a curl,
right,
but we choose not to, and we'll keep putting, I want to lift the 25-pound weight on our goals. It's like, well, what's stopping you? Nothing. Who would you become if you could just go do that today? Well, I'd become a much happier person. Well, what are you waiting for? It's just your mental block. You're already doing this stuff. You're already doing the work. You're waking up every day. You're anticipating your emotional interactions with people. And you definitely are, if there's no blemishes in the last 30 days, I mean, that tells me, you're doing really well. And listen, you don't have to, Cynthia. Don't let anybody tell you that you have to have a negative interaction with somebody. There I don't have negative interactions with, and I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying, being somebody in a business, I've had to have so much conflict-oriented discussion that, nobody can make me feel anything unless I give myself my permission to feel that way. And I don't have any negative interactions anymore because I had so many in the past and learned from them. So that's off my goal board. It's off my vision board to become an emotionally intelligent person. It's now just like a business, like you mentioned. It's like you have a project, like a project management, like a new project that's going to come on. But once that project is in the business and it's part of normal everyday operating cadence, it's not a goal anymore. It's just who we are. It's just what we do. This is the normal cadence. So it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that emotional intelligence will always have room for ascension, but you're to the point now where you're having daily interactions, and over 30 days, 60-day periods, you're not reacting negatively in a way that you would not want to.
Yes. And I will say that we're all humans, and we will make mistakes at some point. I do have my 3 people that if I need a jerk reaction, I will call them and I will say, this is how I want to react. And I just blab it out. And then we laugh about it. And it's like, yeah, can you imagine the consequences, this and this and this and this and that? And then we go back, okay, but in all seriousness, like, let's think about this. And I just run over. So it's not that I have no jerk reaction. I will have, it's our human nature, but I don't spit it to the wrong person. I'm very self-aware, very self-conscious of what I say, how I say it. And if I need to give myself an hour or so to even respond to that, I will do that. So that's one of the things. It's not saying, oh, we're perfect or nothing like that. We just know how to manage it a lot better than what we used to.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that you have the proclivity to have, like all humans, a negative or a combative or a defensive or some type of negative energy when somebody tells you something that you don't necessarily like, but you're stopping yourself from having a thought versus actually saying the words.
Yes.
That's emotional intelligence. That is exactly where you should be. So my next question, and maybe this could replace your goal to not react emotionally. Have you ever heard of an emotional refraction?
No. I haven't
So
heard of
an
that.
emotional refraction is basically how long does it take for you to reduce an emotion down to nothing. Let me give you an example. If something bad happens, you've already mastered not lashing out at the person, right? You've had a lot of experience with that in your past, and I'm sure you can remember times in which it got crazy chaotic in the household, and it's just like lashing back and forth, right? So you've allowed yourself to have an installed like bouncer at your doorway that only lets positive things in and out when it comes to what you believe and how you react to other people. So the emotional refraction is basically how long do you stay in your own head about something that happened to you that you didn't like, not that you went and let's say confronted in an inappropriate manner somebody else, but how are you confronting yourself, right? What is the self conversation look like, right? Because the inner world, this conversation, this is the most important conversation that we can have, and we're not completely emotionally intelligent unless we're not only, number one, reacting outwardly, but number two, and probably most important in the long run, is how are we reacting internally? How long does a negative emotion stay with you? That's a question. That's a question that I want you to answer. If you have an experience or an example that you could walk through right now, I'd love to hear it. But if not, then on average, if you get really, let's just say you're a 10 out of 10 upset with something, frustrated. We all know that people use frustrated as if it's like a righteous thing. Like that person frustrated me, therefore like I'm superior and like they shouldn't have frustrated me. Frustration is not useful in any scenario. I've never ran into a scenario where being frustrated, which is, just a soft version of being angry, it's never helped me in any situation. So when's the last time you had a deep negative emotion, like a 10 out of 10, and how long did it stay with you?
Oof, that's a very loaded question. So right now, family-wise, my sister's going through some of her things, and I'm the big sister, so I am like the protector, or I want her to be okay, and I see things happening, and I've been screaming at the top of my lungs, like to my parents. I'm like, this is how it's going, and this is how it's going to continue, and everybody's like, no, you're exaggerating. I'm like, I'm telling you, and now we're all living it, and it's really affecting, our family as a whole. And I am working very hard on not letting that get to me. Very, very, I think I'm spending a lot of energy on trying to like ease all of those emotions, because it hurts, because I don't want to see her going through things that I went through. And I don't want my nephew and my niece going through things that my kids went through. So I am working very hard on this. This is something that it's still a work in progress. I think I am down to a couple hours.
Okay.
I was up by several days.
Yep.
But I'm working a lot on, even when I'm on my head, like when we're having all these self-talks, right, in our brains, I'm like, what purpose is this serving? Like, and I tell this to myself, like, how much energy you spend thinking on something or just moving around that specific thing, instead of putting all that energy, all that anger, or all that negative emotion, and just turning into something better, and just using your time wisely and your energy wisely, and just focusing on this other thing that you actually can move, or that you actually can just continue working towards you, and not spend this energy on things that are not going to change.
Yes, and I love that we're talking about this, because this is the next level to emotional intelligence. Or what we would call EQ, which is juxtaposition on IQ. IQ is problem solving, can't really change that much. It's just predetermines what type of, how quickly you can solve problems. And that's most notably the marker for intelligence, but it's a poor marker for intelligence, in my opinion. The much bigger marker, much more important, significant marker is EQ. And so what EQ requires us to do is to have a separation of thoughts, because anybody that believes that there's free will in terms of what we can think hasn't really thought a lot because I don't even know what the next word I'm going to say is. I literally don't know. There's not a script in front of me. I have no idea what the next sentence that I'm going to say is. Sometimes you have thoughts that pop in your head, like, where did that thing come from, right? And so we've got to have some sort of simple conceptualization of this complex lack of free will that is our thoughts. And it starts with bifurcating the thoughts, right, into the thoughts, right, that Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. It's all the thoughts that have ever manifest for human beings for millions and as long as we've been around with a prefrontal cortex. The thoughts think about it like a cloud of thoughts that randomly just shoot into your brain without you giving it permission to do. That's the collective unconscious. That's, call it, scientifically you could say history is baked into our nervous system, right? Okay, that's one side. Then there's the other side of it, which is your conscious thoughts, the thoughts that, you sit down and you contemplate. You want to ask a question of yourself, and then you want to contemplate that thought. Maybe the question that you asked came from the thoughts, the collective unconscious, but your answers are now your answers. And so what happens is oftentimes if you can imagine like having two streams of thoughts coming in, one are yours, one is the unconscious thoughts, the mind versus your thoughts in your mind. What we end up doing is we take the thoughts and we think we're the only person that has those problems. Right? That's why people can like read or watch something very generic and be like, oh, they were talking right to me. They must have known because the human beings forever have had these same set of the problems and the thoughts come up. And it's like, what are you going to listen to? That's the key question. Are you going to take those thoughts as yours? Right? I'm not the first person, you're not the first person that's ever thought, simply put, I'm a stupid person. Like we've probably said that, I'm dumb. Like we've probably said that about ourselves at some point. Everybody has said this to themselves at some point. That's not your thought. You don't own that thought. You don't get to claim ownership over that thought. You don't get to say, hey, this is mine, I'm gonna put it in my back pocket, I am dumb, right? You said, I am an overthinker. Since when is that good?
Right.
When is that a virtue? That's one of those things. I said, I'm going to find a couple things that come from past and we're going to call it out because it's still here. And I am an overthinker. If you're an overthinker and you think that's righteous,
no.
Right? Then you're listening to the thoughts. If you say, I'm an overthinker, then you're like, yeah, that's the thoughts. But then you say, am I really? And what is overthinking? And do I really do that? Because to me, pretty decisive. If I was an overthinker, I might not have got out of this divorce or this relationship.
That's true.
I would overthink myself until, called paralysis by analysis. I analyze things so much because I'm such an overthinker, I never make any movements. Similar to why people in my position that have like a PhD that I don't have, never even sniff a company that's as impactful and as large as ours, because there wasn't some preconceived notion that I had that said, in order for me to create this influence for myself, I have to have X, Y, and Z. So, stretching my analogy there, but back to the versus your, it's like, what are you letting in and what are you actually owning as your thoughts? And I wrote about this in Stop Starting Over. It's still on Amazon if anybody wants to buy it. I published it in August 2018. We've since released the Burn book as the second book that you're a part of. But I talk a lot about this in Stop Starting Over, the thoughts versus your thoughts. And so when you are trying to shorten your emotional refraction, you have to ask yourself, the tool to actually do that is to ask another question. Is this the thought or is this my thought? And if your emotional refraction is associated to the thoughts, well, then you automatically know that you are emotionally reacting to something that you don't even believe. So the entire state of negative emotion is based on false pretenses. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Woo, that's a good one.
Yes.
And I know you're
That's
learning
so
these
loaded.
things.
Yes.
Yeah, you're learning these things. Are you still with a therapist?
I am.
Okay.
I actually, when you're talking about that, it's like, oh, you kind of hit the nail in there, because the therapist told me to, anytime I say something that is negative about myself, would you say that about your son? Will you tell that to your friend? Will you speak this way about someone? And it's like, oh, I really wouldn't. Or, that's not a way I would like to reference. And I'm actually always like scolding my friends. I'm like, don't speak like that about yourself. And then here I am. Oh, I'm an overthinker. So that's a great analogy. I think you are very spot on with that.
I call him Rocco in my book just because it's memorable and it's silly. Mm-hmm. But like, you can think about the doorway of your mind being like a club, right? And at the door of the club, that bouncer, a big 7-foot guy named Rocco, is only letting the thoughts that belong at your party that you've invited in. And so that little mechanism, that little Rocco, or whatever you want to call that person, the gatekeeper to your mind, is an actual metaphor. It is a doorway, and there is a person or an entity standing at that doorway, and it is saying, no, I'm not going to take you on as my thought because you are everyone's thought. And this most manifests itself with parents, by the way. Like most often it's like, I'm a bad mom or I'm a bad dad because you like missed your, like everybody missed something for their kids at some point. Don't take one little thing and then project that onto yourself as if that's everything. So that's the thought versus your thought. Which ones are you going to let in? What do you really believe? So let me ask you, I am an overthinker. Is that the or your?
No, that's the.
Do you really give me an example? Like if I'm going to play this out, like this is how the conditioning of our past creeps up in our future. Give me an example of how you're an overthinker. Like give me an example in which it's taken you far too long to make a decision, let's say, and it absolutely fundamentally ruined irreversibly the trajectory of your life.
I don't think irreversibly necessarily, but I did overthink leaving my marriage for years.
How long?
I will say I was legally married 10 years, maybe 6.
Okay.
When I started reading, I remember my aunt, she sent me books and I had to hide them in order to be able to read them. And I'm like, this is not right. But then I overthought about it. I'm like, well, maybe I'm the one that's wrong. Maybe, let's go to couples therapy and maybe, and then like I had analysis paralysis. I kept analyzing and I kept like putting it on me about why he was reacting the way he was reacting. And I'm like, no. But then I actually took a decision, but it took cancer for me to take that decision.
And are you an overthinker today?
No.
So you used to be a person who would have the tendency to overthink, and and then you created enough pain with that tendency that you finally said, not me, never again, no more. And that refraction took 6 years from, or whenever you realized, hey, this is not it. You overthought for 6 years, and that 6-year period is the reason why you're not an overthinker anymore. Don't you feel better?
Yes.
Aren't you glad, right? Like think the outcome of your decision was what?
It was peace. It was complete peace. It doesn't matter what chaos comes, my way. I live in peace. Like I have a peaceful household and I can happily say that now.
Yeah, so the same way we have a belief system about our body in the gym, we have a belief system about our mind and how emotionally strong we can be. And with every rep that you're going through, it's the same as in the gym. And if you don't think that you're strong enough to lift the 30 pounds, you won't. And if you don't think that you can be somebody who was an overthinker and no longer is, then you won't. Right? And you'll continue to even subconsciously overthink things. So this is good because your legacy vision of your future depends almost entirely on your ability to navigate the world emotionally. And now you know, or now you have reinforced that your thoughts are your thoughts. And now you have emotional intelligence. Your emotional reactions are much dissipated, if not completely eradicated. You now have a distinction on what type of reaction, what actually causes the reaction, the versus your, and now you have a opportunity to say, what are my belief systems overall? That's your homework.
Okay.
You have a mindset, right? Mm-hmm. You have a set of beliefs. This is also inherently self-awareness work. What are all of the instances in which put it this way. What are your belief systems? Like, what do you believe? What is the set of your mind? And then I want you to do 30 minutes. I want you to sit down and I want you to write, what are all my belief systems? What do I believe? What do I believe about family? What do I believe about relationships? What do I believe about my body? What do I believe about my nutrition? I can kind of give you these eight categories. Okay. Do you have something to write something down with? Okay. So you can come up with just a couple statements of what you believe, right?
Okay.
Body, number 1. There's 8 overall. Number 2, mind.
Okay.
Number 3, emotion. Number 4, spirit.
Spirit.
Your connection to the greater divinity. Number 5, relationships. Relationships with all the important people in your life. What do you believe about them? Time, work, and then money.
Time, work, and money.
Yep. So body, mind, emotion, spirit, relationships, time, work, and money. Those 8 categories. And I want you to just kind of take a piece of paper, write the category at the top of a page, and just spend 30 minutes, spend an hour somewhere in there without a cell phone, without any distractions if you can, and ask yourself, what are my belief systems? That's step number 1. Okay? Just write it out. Don't try to be too pointed here or be too specific. Just like, I believe this. Do you have core values written on a piece of paper as a human being?
I don't.
Okay, so this is prerequisite. This is important. You mentioned that you want to run your life like a business, right? Like that resonated with you. Okay, so every business has core values, and you have a choice when you have core values. Do you actually navigate your life by them? Do they determine what you say yes and what you say no to? Or do you just have some sticker on the wall because somebody told you that you should have core values, and so here it is, I'm checking the box and I'm not filling it? Most companies, 99% of them just have a sticker on the wall, right? But core values to me is who you are in your essence, how you say yes, how you say no to things, and what will be your navigation, axiomatic matrix, decision matrix for your life. All right? Okay. Your core values will be derived. This will be step 3. Okay? Your core values will be derived from your process. So let me break down this whole process for you really quick in a soundbite so that you get it, okay?
Okay.
All right, here's the homework for you, Cynthia.
Okay, I'm
Again,
ready.
8 pieces. Mind, body, emotion, spirit, relationship, time, work, money. What are your set of beliefs? What is your mindset? What do you believe in all of those categories? Take an hour, sit down, no distractions, get everything on paper. That's number 1. Number 2, come back with the list a day later, 2 days later, after you've had time to contemplate the list. Go back through the list and say, is this true? Is this my belief?
It's true.
Or is this a belief? Is this the collective unconscious, or is this my mind? Finally, number 3, out of all the things that are your beliefs, you tally those, you bring them over to a new piece of paper. You get rid of all the ones that are old beliefs that are somebody else's that you actually don't even believe anymore. And then from that work, from killing the things that you don't believe, bringing forward the things that you do, what you're going to come up with is a few words. And those few words are going to be core values. You're going to be able to look at the list and say, oh, integrity is really important to me. Authenticity is really important to me. Family. When I did this exercise with my family, what ended up happening was I didn't have any core values growing up. They weren't distilled. I was a blank slate. And so I went through this exercise, and almost everything was something else that I had heard somewhere. And then I had to actually really decide what I believed. 4 core values for my personal family came out of that. Is that the Klein family is 4 things. This is what we do. We lead, we love, we learn, we grow. What we don't do is we don't make excuses, we don't complain, we don't bully, and we don't point blame. We don't, yeah. So those are essentially the 8 things that I came up with in mine. And I want you to come up with 3 things that you do as a family, 3 things that you don't do as a family.
Okay. I love that.
And then you ask yourself, are these core values a set of core values that I could actually navigate my life with? Am I willing to say no to things in my life that actually I might be excited about because my core values tell me no? That's the work. And that is your homework. And I think this is some of the most important work you can do at this stage in the game. And I would be happy to review it with you. So if you'd like to share it with me, you could share each one of the 3 steps with me, and I would be more than happy to go over that with you, and even bring you back on the podcast in the future to go over it. But I don't think pull-ups matter that much, and I don't think the other stuff matters that much until you've really dialed in. Like this is how I'm going to navigate out from here on out. And the reason I got into a few places I didn't want to get to, that I wouldn't call dark, but I would call them on the pathway to darkness. And the reason you got to a place of darkness is because we didn't have that. We didn't have rules that navigated how quickly we're supposed to get out of things that aren't good for us. And so now you're at the mercy of everyone else's mind around you and what their core values are and their projections onto you.
Right.
So this is the work. How does that sound?
Sounds amazing. Sounds like I got a lot of work to do.
Yep. It's the work
I love it though.
It's the work of leaders. So I love this.
I'm always excited to work on myself and see, what things really matter to me. I don't know. I'm just pleasantly surprised every time I find something about me. And I'm like, oh, yeah. How did I not know that? So I'm excited.
Yeah, all those little wins are giving you momentum. And I just see it on your face. You're just in such a great place. This is a beautiful place to be in.
Yes.
I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Right?
Yep. Right in it. That's where he is.
Right? And on the other side of that is the sun. And we all know that. So this is great. Why don't you repeat back to me the exercise so that I got clarity that you are going to go out and you're going to execute this. We know exactly what to do and there isn't any misconceptions. And then we'll take it out.
So I'm going to write what I believe, my belief system, my mind, body, emotion, spiritual, work, relationship, time, and money. And I am going to tally my beliefs to get to my core values, and I'm going to have 4 don't and 4 do's.
That's right. Shoot it over to me. We'll work on it. Sit with it for a minute before you do that. Like, this isn't a process you want to rush. Sit with it and really ask yourself the question, do I believe these things? Do I believe these things? Not the mind, does my mind believe these things? And then I think you'll get through that process too, Cynthia, you're going to get a lot of clarity. I don't know where it's going to come from, but doing that work will inevitably bring things forward that will create more work for the future so that we can, and the great thing is there's no stop, right? There's always more work that we can do on ourselves, and this finite amount of time that we have, it's what makes life beautiful. So
we always need to strive for growth. It doesn't matter how far along in the journey you are, there's always room to grow. And
I love that you're being vulnerable, stepping up and taking steps to own your own life. And you're just such an inspiration to so many other people out there that need to do what you've done and start to take control so that they can get to this place. And I'll just commend you that you're in a extremely aware place, and you know that, but hopefully it helps to hear a little positive reassurance. Like, I talk to a lot of people, Cynthia, and ones that have never experienced the level of trauma that you have, and there's a place somewhere in this work where, unless you've already done it, where that's all forgiven, where it's actually looked at, that experience, that it's looked at as the most gratifying blessing you could have ever had in your life, and you are in such love with the situation you were placed in and what it taught you, that there's no remorse, there's no ill will, there's no grudge, and you know, I would assume that you've done that work, but if not,
That's where I am today.
Yeah, this
I
exercise.
was not there.
Yeah.
If you would ask me a couple months ago, but that is where I am today. I'm actually thrilled. I always say this, and I've always said this. I am not happy I got cancer, and I would never wish that upon anybody. But to me, it was such a blessing. It was the beginning of my life. So I am definitely grateful for my journey, because it just stripped me completely of who I was.
Well, I'm glad you're here today, and I'm glad you're thriving, alive, and well, continuing to put the work in on the floating floor. And I know your burn sisters and burn bros out there really do appreciate you. Where, if they want to like just DM you, where can they DM you to communicate with you? If they just want to say hello, congratulate you, ask you any advice, where can they find you?
Thank you. Yeah. So my Instagram handle is Cynthia Russe Realtor. So Cynthia Russe and Realtor. And I'm pretty easy to find.
All right. Well, I appreciate you being here today, Cynthia. Thank you. And yeah, we'll text, and we'll get a time where you can come back on the podcast and we could talk about your exercise. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
All right, Burn Nation. Thank you guys for joining us today. Thanks for being here with Cynthia, going over some work that she is putting in. The hard work, the work of leaders, the work of ambitious people, the work of successful people starts with emotional intelligence. We talked a lot about that today. A super emotional intelligent person who is ready to find more distinctions, find deeper insights, to know thyself better. And it's a journey worth embarking on, and one that I hope this podcast has inspired you to embark on as well. So subscribe to podcast on Spotify, on Apple. You can watch on YouTube and Spotify, by the way, if you'd like to watch. Or otherwise, you can listen on Apple. Guys, gals, we appreciate you. And one thing that really is important to me, if you're still listening, is that I would love to have your reviews. We've got a handful of them, and they're great reviews. But if you're listening and you haven't reviewed, and you're on like your 20th podcast and you haven't quite reviewed yet, like, can your boy get a little love here? Okay, Cynthia and we need to know that what we're doing is impacting you. So go ahead and drop a review on Apple. That's my favorite place. And until next time, we'll see you there. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.